All right, go ahead and get your reading questions out. Stretch my cord out so I can move around. This week, I had you read again more about the feudal system, which we've talked about. I wonder if this is going to flop around and make funny noises on the video. I don't know. Jesse will have to deal with it. Oh, and they took, hang on everybody, they took away my rag. So now I need a Kleenex. Okay. We've talked about the feudal system several times before, but it's really, you know, the basis of understanding how life was set up. Oh, did I get you a paper rug? Thank you, sir. So the very first question I asked you is, what were the three divisions of medieval society? Lent. Okay. What was the first one? Clerks. Okay. So I'm going to draw a little. We have clerks, and this means anybody in the church, okay? This can be priests and bishops, but it could also just be what say again, Maya, what you said? Okay, so clerks, yes, well, the nobles go with it. The nobles and the knights are the same category. So the nobles and the knights, we'll say, because they're kind of on the same team, as it were, and the peasants. And I don't necessarily mean this triangle to say that these are most important, although, what did I tell you about the church in the Middle Ages? It was everything, right? It was very, very central to people's lives. But think about the peasants. You know, they're not very, they're the workers, and they're probably pretty poor, and people probably don't think they're very special. But what happens if they all disappear? What happens to everybody else? Why? Yeah, what do they do? What? Okay, and what did that work do for everybody else? I'm thinking of something specific. What? Fed. I mean, yes. I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying. They're feeding everybody. That's pretty important. You can't get much done if you don't eat. So, and then the knights and the nobles are doing what for everybody? Protecting, defending. So we have care of the soul, care of the body, and protection. And it's a pretty good system. And everybody kind of knew where they belonged. Do you think that everybody likes to know where you belong in life? Do we want to belong? Do we want to have a place? Like you are a son or a daughter. You belong in a family. You live in a certain country under a certain government. And we'd like to know that we belong. Does that make sense? Right. Well, that's exactly what I was going to go into, so I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, except that as the Middle Ages wore on, we say the Middle Ages, but I want to point out to you, we're talking about from, you have to write this down, from 476 all the way to like 1500. All right, we're talking about 1,000 years. Life wasn't all the same. You know what I mean, the whole time. Things changed. And early Middle Ages, yeah. In later, towns started growing, and a new group of people rose up in the towns. What do a lot of people do for a living that live in towns, even today? Yeah, but what do the people who live in the town, how do they make their living? How do they make their money? Doing what? They sell things. Like, notice there isn't a I sell things category. Yes, but they're not selling the food. They're not selling it to anyone. They are required to give some of it to their Lord. And the rest of it they eat themselves. They're not taking it to the farmer's market. But no, just the nobles. Everybody, yes, everybody was required to give to the church. I'm sorry, we're digressing all over the place, but it's hard to, there's so many ins and outs of this. Everybody was required to give something to the church. Everybody. Some of it went to the local church. Some of it went, if you lived in the West, some of it went to Rome, to the Pope, who then used it to minister to the needs of, like if there's a drought or a famine somewhere, minister to the needs of those people. So yes, everybody's giving to the church, and everybody's giving to their Lord that's over them. And then whatever's left over, you live on. But as time went on, we had more people moving to towns. Towns are getting bigger. And what do you do to make a living? You can't farm in the town. Not enough room. You farm your backyard. You're not going to make much, money that way. You're not going to grow much to live on. So they start selling things. Maybe they sell produce from outside. Maybe some groups of farmers have enough. Or they make stuff. Think about, this was early America. Have you ever read, when you guys were really little, did you read a book called The Ox Cart Man? Does anybody know that book? It's a picture book for little kids, and it's adorable because it's about this early American family, and it's about how they make everything they need at home. They spend, and it goes through the year, and they make, in the winter, they make candles, and they make, he makes a new cart to take to town, and they make leather goods, they spin wool to make cloth and weave it into cloth. And then when the spring comes, he loads it onto this cart and he takes it to town and he sells it. And then he sells the cart. And then he goes to the store and he buys the things that they can't make at home, like sugar for a treat. If you've ever read the Little House books, sometimes Pa bought sugar, but that was special, right? Or some sort of hard candy. That was super special. So anyway, it got to the point where there became a group of people that I own a store and I sell things. Or I'm a blacksmith or a leather worker, a shoemaker, or whatever, and I make things for you so you don't have to make it at home. And if you just pay me, then you don't have to make it at home, which is how we live today, right? How many of you make everything at home? How many, just curious, this is not, like how many of you, your mom ever made you an article of clothing that you wear? Like homemade article of clothing, okay? Like my mom did, except she wasn't very good at it, and it was kind of ghastly. And then I had to wear it to school. It's all right. My mother-in-law, my husband still has tank tops, because tank tops are pretty easy, like the front and the back is sort of the same, and you just sew them along the sides. Anyway, point being that as the Middle Ages went on, this group arose that didn't fit in this triangle, okay? So we're going to call them the merchants. But yes, in the early Middle Ages particularly, you were going to be in one of these categories. That's the way it was. And that takes me back to this idea of fitting in. In the Middle Ages, people had a mindset, they liked everything to be balanced. Symmetry and balance. And we know where everything belonged. They would have been great organizers, like home office organizers. Everything's in its place because they liked everything to be, have a place and be in its place. So they developed this idea of the great chain of being. You have God at the top, and you have the lowliest animals at the bottom, and every creature fits into the chain. Somebody said yesterday, like the food chain. It's like, sort of, but not exactly. You have a place, and so man is connected to what's above him because we have spirit, and we're connected to what's below us because we have body. And they had this lovely system because they liked everything to be balanced. And this was a very balanced system. These guys kind of wrecked the system a little bit when they started selling stuff. It's like, we don't know what to do with you. What are you doing? You're selling things. And you're making lots of money. You're turning into these guys because you're getting rich. But you didn't inherit it. We don't know what to do with you. But if you were a peasant, you were probably going to stay a peasant. And your children were probably going to be peasants. I'm sorry. If you were a peasant family and you had a particularly generous nobleman over you, and your child showed promise, he was a particularly intelligent child, they might see to kind of taking your child under their wing and getting them set up to maybe on the road to become a knight, or sending them to school on the road to become a clerk. But probably this is where you're going to stay. Noblemen could go either way. So if I am, let's see, we're going to make Simeon a nobleman. Congratulations. And you have Jacob and Rhett and Matthias. These are your sons, and you can only give all your stuff to one of them. It's probably going to be the eldest one. Sorry, Jacob, I've decided is the eldest one, just because I'm looking at him. Okay, you guys, I'm sorry. Life is tough. But you're going to have to do something else for a living because you're not inheriting the house. So possibly they may send you, Simeon may send you to the church and just say, raise my son and train him for a career. And it was a good career. And it didn't mean you were necessarily going to become a priest. You just might work in the administrative system of the church. But Jacob gets to go, when he's 7 years old, they're going to ship him out to a neighboring family so he can become a page and he can get on the knight career track. What would you want to be? Yeah, because it would be weird now because we don't really have an aristocracy. We do, but it's... This is true. We kill too, unfortunately. Okay, Maya first. Oh yeah, you just marry off your daughters, or you put her in a convent. Depends on her inclination. It also depends on whether or not you have a neighbor that you'd really like to be friendlier with, and if you marry your daughter into their family, you'll be friendly. Sorry, ladies. Okay, so if you were thinking that Rhett and Matthias were having a rough time, the ladies are having a rough time too, because your dad just says, you know what, you're marrying this guy. The Middle Ages, in fact, when we read Robin Hood, we're going to read the story of a woman who was being forced to marry against her will because her dad wanted her to marry some rich guy and cement an alliance. But I'm not going to tell you what Robin Hood does about it, but he does something about it. I don't want to ruin the story for you. Oh, yeah. Yeah, pretty much. But here's the thing. Hold on to your thought, Rhett. We have an idea, don't we, that we get to choose the path of our life. Don't we all kind of think that's true? That God needs to choose the path of our life. But you know what I mean. We have many paths open to us. And as Americans today, we think, well, I have a right to choose my path. And so when we hear things like this, like, that's terrible. Well, that's awful. But what if you had no idea of the right to choose your own path? It makes my mind explode because I can't. I grew up thinking I get to choose my own path. I get to choose my own career. I get to choose my own spouse. But what if I had no idea like that? It wouldn't seem mean. Does that make sense? It just wouldn't seem mean if I hadn't grown up with the idea that I live in a free country and I get to choose my path. Okay, Rhett gets to go first.
What was the point of
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, there's always going to be stuff you can't make for yourself. So, for example, very few people ever, including the ox cart man in that book, had a blacksmithy in their own home. Like shoeing your horses, sharpening your weapons. There's always going to be things you can't have. Also, you can ship things in that you can't get locally. So if I'm rich, I can get silk clothes from Constantinople, or I can get, you know, tea imported from China or whatever. Does that make sense? Or if you're Sutton, you can get very good. Excellent remembering, yes. Okay, yes, Ella. It is true. I mean, it's not a popular thing to say today, but generally, your parents know more than you do. I hate to break it to you guys, but your parents really have been around longer and they know more than you do. And sometimes they can see a train wreck in a relationship coming and you don't see it. What? What, yeah. Well, yeah, it is, but it's, yes, yes. Like, yes, no. Well, no, okay, so let's put it this way. Would you rather, my son plays the horrible would you rather, you know, the horrible, and he just nabs me at random times. Would you rather? That's never a good choice. But would you rather break your arm? Okay, I'm going there. Would you rather break your arm just so that you can know? It's not a good analogy. What it feels like. So, okay. See, would you rather break your arm so that you could have empathy with other people who have broken their arms? Or would you rather just not ever break your arm in the first place and not have to go through all the pain? Like, and I say this as somebody, I've broken 9 bones because I'm klutz.
Like, obviously there are less diseases but at times there are now. I think that, and I completely see what you're saying about electricity, but I also think part of the reason is because, like, when you divorced back then, it would be like, we'd be dishonoring,
And frankly, it wasn't allowed. Let's just go there. The church did not allow divorce. The Catholic Church today still does not allow divorce, except that they have, you can get an annulment. But.
also you're forced to get used to the person. I guess you're just forced to get used to them.
Well, no, but you know what? I see. Oh man, this is great, but it's hard. It's because we have a different idea of what marriage is for. And so it's like, then it was 2 people who will work to get along and raise a family together, because this is the reason for their existence. And it wasn't, oh, I found my soulmate, and oh, he's the love of my life. And it wasn't like that. And I don't mean to say that one way is bad and the other way is good. It just wasn't like that. And so, yes, you're forced to get ready, to get on with someone. G.K. Chesterton, who's a famous 20th century Christian writer, said that that's what marriage certificates and marriage does. It says it's like rope that ties you down when you don't want to stay anymore. That's a mean way to put it, but when the moment comes when you say, oh my gosh, I think I married a jerk. What is he thinking? What is she doing? And you're like, yeah, but I promised to stay. So we're going to have to sit down and work it out. I can't just leave. Yes. I concur. However, that is not the world we live in anymore.
Yeah, there's a problem if it becomes like the dad or the parent is just doing that because they're rich or
Your system, which I haven't seen yet, but which presupposes that your parents love you and will do the best for you. But that system has to rest on the fact of loving parents who want the best for you. Okay, Rhett first and then you, Roy. Rhett. It was, and the business was raising a family and bringing new people into the world who will be added to the kingdom of God and will, if I'm a farmer, if I'm one of these peasants, lots of kids are very helpful because I have a lot of work to do. Yeah, Roy. I know, that's very hard to understand. Like imagine if your parents had best friends and they just decided between the two of them that their children would get married to each other.
it feels like more of like a school. Yeah, but I bet
I will agree.
I think that comes off of like how we've been, what we've been raised to think. Like, it's your own choice, you know, like, yeah. Because it's like you don't want to treat women as less, you know, as tools or as objects, like, but still, like, God made them for a purpose, and like put our parents to be birth for us. So
It's a hard, so, okay, right, yeah. This actually is, I don't know if this was the story, but it happened to be, did he become king? Yeah. Okay, yes, this is a true, I've just read this story in Livy. Okay, we're actually going to move on to the next question, but. What? Uh-oh. Okay, we are moving on. What are the 3 feudal aids, Maya? Okay, which I want to talk about last. That's what I wanted to talk about. Yes, but it is the gifts that the wife brings to her husband. So, or the wife's father, generally. So, I don't want to use examples here. You know, Jack is going to marry Sally, and Sally's dad gives Jack a boatload of money to marry Sally. Money comes with Sally. Now, if Sally gets given the boot, which I told you divorce was not okay, you had to get special permission from the Pope for divorce. But if for some reason you just wanted to toss Sally out of the house, or you are disenchanted with Sally, you have to give the money back. So, okay, on the one hand, I am of very mixed feelings about this whole system. On the one hand, is Jack really going to be quick to give Sally back if he's got to give all the money back? Oh no, we're holding on to Sally. We're going to put up with a lot from Sally because she came with money. On the other hand, I know, it makes me feel that way too. On the other hand, it feels a little bit like Jack has been paid to marry Sally. And truly, when women had no dowry or very little dowry, it was sometimes hard to marry them off. unless they were really pretty. You had to be prettier. Oh man, you had to be prettier or have a lot of money. I'm sorry, I don't like to say these things, but that's the way it was. I have to tell you the way it was. So that's a dowry. A dowry is the money that a woman brings into the new household, provided by her if she's independently wealthy, but probably by her father. Tradition of what? Say again. Yes. Well, and that was just courtesy because and also the dad had the authority over the daughter till the daughter left home. So really you couldn't marry, I suppose you could run off like people do today, but it was very frowned upon to marry someone without the blessing of your parents.
Yeah, and then is that why people, or the bride's family pays for the wedding?
I don't know, but that's a very good thought. Hadn't really thought about that. Rehearsal dinner. I know this well because this happened to me in August. So this is what, so keep in mind what we're talking about. But the dowry we just read is also being contributed to by that Lord's vassals. Right? So I'm sorry, I am blanking out on your name this morning. Dalton. Oh. Dalton has a daughter. Congratulations. And she grew up so fast, she's now of marriageable age. And so this whole table is his vassals. They are his peasants. Boy, Simeon, how the mighty have fallen. A minute ago you were a nobleman, now you're a peasant. This is the wheel of fortune, just turns. And so not only is he going to give the dowry for Sally, but you're all going to contribute. And frankly, you don't have a lot to begin with. Now, possibly, Dalton is pretty high up in the chain. So we have king, and then we have, okay, I'm going to list titles. These are not necessarily in order of importance. I don't know the order of importance. I'm just being random, okay? Then we have a count, and we have an earl, and we have a duke. And then the duke he's like the bottom, and he has, the P's are peasants, okay. And so maybe, so if the count's daughter gets married, it's not like all of these people have to contribute. Does this make sense? Only the one below you in the food chain, in the great chain of being, all right? So it's not like he's going to go, because if you think about it, then if the king's daughter got married, then the whole country would have to contribute. And it just didn't work that way. So it's really worse when the duke's daughter gets married, because all the poor peasants, who are maybe sometimes in a bad year barely alive. Do you know what I mean? They're barely growing enough. Because remember, they got to give some of it to the church and some of it to the nobleman, and then they live off what's left. And if hail, storms, locusts, whatever, have eaten their crops, they don't have a lot to give. So so the duke, it's nice if the duke would just have sons. But yeah, so you're contributing, the people below you are contributing. So that's the first of these feudal aids, the things a vassal has to do for his lord. The things one level has to do for the level above them, all right? Second one you said was, pay the expenses of making the Lord's eldest son a knight. I would like to hold off on discussion of that because the next chapter you're going to read is all about how you become a knight. What is a knight? What's their job description? And how does it happen? And we will talk about that. Yeah, Bailey, did you have a hand up? Was somebody over here? Oh. And the last one was pay ransom to get their lord out of captivity. Like, what are people being kidnapped left and right? Yes, they are. Okay, I need to erase because I need to put something else on the board. Okay, so one way to get kidnapped and taken into captivity would be in war, right? The enemy takes you, are we all with me? Takes you as a prisoner of war, but they don't kill you if they are being kind, good, if they're, what do I say, adhering to the code of conduct that everybody agreed should be followed in war. If you have prisoners of war, you ransom them. You don't just kill them. So the episodes we have in medieval history where people just out and out slaughtered all their prisoners of war, people are like, "Ooh, dude, that's bad form. Don't do that." And it's a lot of money that you just lost. So what you do, so we're going to talk about the Crusades in a few weeks. And so one side would take a prisoner of war, and then they would hold you if you were anybody that had any sort of money. And they would wait for your family to send money for you. Pirates sometimes did this too. North Africa was just rife with pirates, North African pirates. And they would kidnap you and then hopefully hold you for ransom. They'd send a note to your family. I don't know how they knew your address, how to get to your family. And they would say, if you send a certain amount of gold, we will let your loved one go home. So the job of coming up with that money was your vassals. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah, Rhett. That's very bold. And also, your vassals at home are not happy to hear that. It's like, no, you're not worth more than that. Stop raising the price. So there's a famous story. King Richard, the Lion-Hearted, when he was coming back from the Crusades, had made some enemies while he was there. He was very well liked, and sometimes people don't like other people to be well liked. Do you know what I mean? They get jealous. And so one of these fellow noblemen kidnapped him and imprisoned him on his travel home to England. And they didn't know where he was, which is kind of hard to ransom somebody if you don't know where they are. So the famous story is that King Richard had a famous minstrel, like traveling singer, bard, named Blondel. And Blondel wanted to find his king, and then he traveled around Europe with his lyre, whatever, playing and singing a song that was Richard's favorite song. And he just went outside castles and various fortresses and sang it until suddenly one day he heard a voice inside singing back to him. And it was Richard. He was like, I found him. And so he ransomed him. So that sort of thing happened. But the other thing that happened is, okay, and this brings me to our next questions too. Maybe he was near a window, and this may be one of those stories we don't want to think too hard about, because I personally find it unlikely, although it's a lovely story, and there's no reason it couldn't have happened. Do you know what I mean? It's not got some weird magical strangeness to it. It wasn't like a talking unicorn found Richard. It could have happened, but I find it. Europe is big. To wander around singing songs outside every building. I don't know. Okay. So, but what if you have noble 1 and noble 2? Okay. We should call them Joe and Fred. Let's give them names. Okay. And Joe and Fred live fairly near each other. So near that sometimes their peasants get into each other, like the sheep from Fred's flock strays into Joe's fields and they get into it a little bit. And for some reason this has escalated. And Joe and Fred just hate each other. I don't know what to say. It's terrible. It's a terrible situation. So Joe has his team of knights, and Fred also has his team of knights. And so Joe is in the habit of sending his knights over to Fred's land and just like killing a few peasants and burning some fields and stealing things in general from Fred. And of course, what is Fred going to do? Oh, my goodness, he's going to send these knights over and he's going to say, no, you do the same to him. And of course, do you know that thing never ends, right? It's like you do something and then you do something and then you do something and you do something, and this is how big feuds develop. So sometimes these noblemen, I mean, if the knights really pulled it off, poor Joe could get kidnapped and held by Fred. I'm sorry. And then Joe's peasants, big P for collective peasants, are going to have to come up with money. The knights and the peasants are going to have to come up with money to ransom him. What? Yes. So, you know, can you see that this situation is never good for the peasants in any way, shape, or form? Yeah, I mean, either they're going to get attacked. Fred's peasants are getting attacked by Joe's knights, which is not good, or they're coming up with money to ransom somebody. And so this is why, as you wrote your papers on castles for me, you learned that castles are not just one building, are they? They are walls, sometimes more than one set of walls. It's a whole little miniature town inside. And you've got the keep where the nobleman's family lives, but you've got blacksmith shops. Hopefully you've got a source of water in there somewhere. And the bailey, remind me, what's the bailey?
It's the area where the shops
Oh, yes, because if you're under siege, you can't go out to get things, right?
Yeah.
You need stuff to be inside. And that's just what I was going to say, Bailey. So when this is going on, hopefully Joe's really nice, by the way. I don't know, Fred is so mean. Well, Joe, he's just defending himself, Bailey. So Joe says, I know, I'm sorry, I don't know. But hopefully they care enough about their peasants to bring them inside the walls when the opposite party starts marauding. Also, if their peasants all get killed off, no food. So maybe it's not just because they're nice. Maybe it's just because they want a snack. I'm making these people sound really mean. Sorry. So, say it again. Yes. And this is how these things escalate. See, and there's just you gotta eventually make peace, right? So the next question I asked you to read the oath of the pact at Beauvais. Beauvais is in France, but what I am saying here pretty much applies to, you know, medieval societies across Europe. I'm going to read this for you. In 1023, the lords of the region, the Freds and Joes, the Jacques and Pierres of the region, had to promise this: I will not invade in any way churches or the crypts of churches unless it be to seize malefactors, which means people who've done something wrong, who have broken the peace or committed homicide. I will not assault clerks or monks not bearing secular arms. I will carry off neither ox nor cow nor any other beast of burden. I will do nothing to cause men to lose their possessions on account of their Lord's war, and I will not beat them to make them give up their property. From the first day of May to All Saints' Day. You know when All Saints' Day is? You're close. November 1st, because that's what Halloween is. November is All Hallows Day, All Saints' Day, and Halloween is All Hallows Eve, All Saints' Eve. Okay. So from May till the 1st of November, I will not seize horse, nor mare, nor foal from the pastures. I will neither destroy nor burn houses, nor root up, nor cut down the vines under pretext of war. And my question for you is, if you got a bunch of guys together and made them swear that, what were they doing before? They were doing all of that. and beating people up, apparently, to take their problem. I mean, you say the beating people. Well, but it said beating too. I'm like, what? And you know what? In a couple weeks, they're going to get a new hobby. But yes, so let's talk about that. So they expanded. I asked you next what was the truce of God, which is what Bailey was moving into. So we had from May to November, but it doesn't say from May to November they won't do any of that other stuff. It only says from May till November I will not seize horses, mares, or foals from the pastures, or burn down houses, or root vines. Okay, go ahead, Maya. Yes. You can read the truths of God. Okay, go ahead. Go for it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. So, yes, excellent. So now we're going to make a new rule, because, all right, why, when you make a rule, and then later you make a new rule, what does that tell you about the first rule? It didn't work out as well as they had hoped. So they made a new rule. Yes, from Wednesday night to Monday morning, we're just not going to fight. So everybody on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, stay home. Stay home. But you can't stay home, because if you're farming, you know, you've got to go out and work. And yes, excommunicated, we will throw you out of the church until you repent. No communion for you, no church services for you. Then it says they added on the 40 days of Lent. Then the weeks from Easter to Pentecost, which is, so Lent is, most of you are familiar with Lent, like the 7 weeks or so before Easter, and then the weeks after Easter to Pentecost. We have a big stretch of time there. And some saints' days, especially St. John the Baptist, Assumption of the Virgin, and St. Martin. So they started setting aside time periods or particular days of the week or holidays. Yeah, we don't fight on those days. What does the world come to when we have to lay down rules about when you can just maraud and grab stuff and beat people up? And it's just not good. Probably not, although this opens up a big can of worms. We have the ability to kill larger numbers of people at once. That's the problem. If you have a sword, there's a limit to how many people you can do damage to before somebody does damage to you, really. But if you have a machine gun, you can do much more damage. And if you have a nuclear bomb, you can do a really lot more damage. We just can do much more damage when it happens. Yes. Gunpowder. So when we are going to attack one of these castles, because, okay, Joe and Fred, I've erased Joe and Fred, but we're going to bring them back to memory. They each have their own castle complex. All right, they're bringing their peasants in when Fred goes marauding. Joe brings his guys in. Yeah, Roy. Wow. Because you know what happens? When somebody invents something, the other side starts to invent something to get around it. Do you know what I mean? It goes back and forth. It just takes a little time. That's very interesting. Mm-hmm. Yes, probably so. But now, like, her guards live in there and stuff like that. Yes. So, say again. Kind of the courtyard. Yeah. So Joe and Fred each have their castle, and they. So how are you going to attack this castle? What have I done? Okay, just a second. How does it? I'm telling you.
On the ground, isn't it?
What is, oh, geez. Okay, I am a firm believer that my dry erase markers move of their own accord. I can't prove it, but I feel like they are sentient and they move around. Yes, only it's their goal in life is to make me look foolish. Okay, wait, what were we talking about? Okay, so here is, we're looking at the edge of the wall. And then, what do? We dig a moat, right? What's the moat for? Oh, Alan, no, oh! Okay, he's saying please. I got to pick Matthias, yes. That is the perfect answer. I'm sorry, Alice. You get the next question you want, it's yours. Okay? Yes, Red.
And the water made the edges of it like soft, so if you tried to put like a ladder and stuff across.
Okay, yeah, and Roy, what do you got to add? No, it wasn't clean because, okay, this is the ugly fact. I don't know if this was you learn the weirdest things in this class. You know, they had little holes and it jutted out, and it was the little poo hole. You know what I mean? It was the potty, and you just, I know. Or there were pipes. You know, hopefully it didn't just drop down, but you know, there were pipes going down. You don't want to swim in that moat. And I'm thinking everybody needs air fresheners who live on this side of the. Yes.
When I went off of the second and third floor and sat outside the window, it was that.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a
They slide it out.
I don't know how high up it was. I'm not an expert, but yeah, they did it out. Yeah, and then it went down, and they had little, like, you could shimmy up if you were really, you know what? So I watched this terrible. Oh, I can't believe I'm telling this story. I watched this terrible comedy. Actually, it was a very funny comedy, and it involved the bad guy was inside this castle in Europe, and he shimmied up the poo pipe. But then his companion found there were just stairs right next to it, and they met at the top, and he had shimmied up the poo pipe.
Why did we go into that?
You don't want to do that. Okay, well, notice how the poo pipe just brings out all the hands getting raised. Okay, Rhett. No, I don't want to. I don't even like using porta potties. I don't even.
Somewhere in France, in Belgium somewhere, there's this castle, I want to say somewhere in Belgium, there's this really cool castle, and it's right next to a river, and I can't say the French now well, it's like 2 stories up, and it's on the outer wall, where you have your toilet, so like, not even by the main castle.
Oh, okay. And you just poo in the river.
But the tour, they have the tours, and the castle in general is really cool, but the guy that did like recorded the tour,
Well, how can, you kind of have to be. Okay, Roy, you waited so patiently. What was your comment? Yeah, and clear away the poo, and then you use it for fertilizer. Oh, no. No. So I want everybody to do something as soon as this class is over. As you're walking to your next section, I want you to say a thank you to God that you live now, okay? Let's all say thank you for toilets and anesthetic and just several things. Okay, okay, all right. Okay, one more thing, and then I'm moving on.
Okay, so if you've been camping or if you have to go, or if you use alcohol,
Well, carry your boat. It means to carry your boat around waterfalls or something. Oh, yes. Yes, you have to dig, which on Survivor,
would you rather use this or use that?
yeah, this.
It's not almost like not like a like it's kind of like a window like both of them are
Okay, I'm really happy that this was just so interesting to everybody. This is, I tell you this every time. I get up on Wednesday morning and I have no idea what we're going to talk. I mean, I know roughly what we're going to talk about, but I just have to be ready that, wow. Okay, so, but we're going back to Matthias, all right? Matthias, first of all, I need to erase the poo pipe because it's just disconcerting to me. We're going to just overlook the poo. No, I can't. We should never erase history. Okay, so, you know, the drawbridge is up. I can't get, you know, I'm Joe, yay, I'm attacking, I'm so happy, and I have a sword. Okay, and, but, what is happening up here that's not gonna make him very happy? Well, not yet. Yeah, so I'm up here, and I'm very angry. I'm very angry, and I can't do it the right direction. Okay, but you get the idea. All right, I am taking you guys out. Here, Roy, yeah. Yes. These guys have really long arms. Okay, it's just like that. But you have a covering over you, or you have shields. The Romans did this. They put their shields above their heads. They have a lovely name for it. It's called a testudo, and in Latin it means turtle. They make themselves a turtle. Is everybody writing that down?
Okay, so if you fill a jar.
Why did that get such a flurry?
Okay, if you fill a jar full of beads, then we get an ice cream party at the end, and if you write down Latin,
Oh!
then you get a bead in the jar to get ice cream.
I will keep this in mind. I will see how many I can find. Okay, we can work together. Because they're everywhere. Okay, that's so funny. I say testudo and all these, oh my gosh. I guess the best thing we ever heard. Does Greek count? No. Oh, I'll give you a Greek one. Okay, so, but a great idea is to build a tower. It has wheels. Yes, and then I'm going to.
That's a C. So the defense is, wait, Okay, so the angry giant is
I didn't mean him to be a giant.
the guy who has lives in the castle.
He lives in the castle.
And then the thing on wheels is the enemy approaching.
Yeah, yeah. We're gonna pull this up here, and we've got guys can stand on top. We can actually put a bridge across, and we can run across, and we can stab him. Okay, I'm sorry. That's looks like a canoe. We can take over, and we can take out the defenders on the walls. But see what the moat does? It constricts how close. My bridge is gonna have to be really long. So I might need to fill up the moat with something. I might have to get logs or something so I can run it closer. You know, I do what I'm told. Poo. Dead bodies. Yes, in some cases they tell stories where the moat is already filled with dead bodies and they can climb across the dead bodies, which is just, that's a would you rather. Would you rather climb through the poo or the dead? No. That's a neither. Yes. Uh-huh.
Someone mentioned that they put like alligators in there.
You see that, and I don't know if that's true. I don't know that it's not true. It's not true. Is it a short story? Okay.
So my grandpa, like, he would, so this time my mom was like, I don't know how old she was. But anyway, she was, her dad, he went, was, in a trailer park. So, her dad not really like wood or something, or they get no water, or it's water, then he asked that like factors in the
Oh.
and particularly his wife like tea.
Oh, no, okay. I would like you to stop the story right now because I know where it's going. Okay. No, no, but Bailey, I'm sorry. I see where you're going from. Okay, so the other thing that we can do is we can, I'm sorry, don't, I told you. We can lob big rocks into them. Yes. Okay, Bailey, I'm sorry, I'm done. Catapults were the catch-all phrase for anything that flings things. All right, so we think of a traditional one flinging rocks or whatever, but it could be the big crossbow bolts. Do you know what I mean? You've seen that with the big arrows. Roy, you got something? Yes, ballistas. You know, if you play Age of Empires, they teach you all these cool mangonels and all this stuff that you can buy. Awesome. Very cool. Okay, Maya and then Rhett, and then I got something to show you. There could be flaming fireballs. Okay, just, oh man, it's had neighbor. Rhett. Yes, it is. Good job. Okay, Roy, say it loud. Yeah.
During the Black Flag, they threw the infected virus.
They did. Okay, so my husband, I'll say this so that, because I'm going to unplug myself, so I'll come back here so Jesse can see me. Oh, Jesse should see these too. So I'm sorry, Jesse, you are missing the fun. I have brought in just a standard catapult here and a trebuchet. And so let me talk about them in front of the camera, and then I'm going to disconnect, and we're going to see how far we can fling this baby. So, you know, obviously a catapult, this is not meant to be like a historically accurate model, all right? This is just to play with. And I'll show you, you know, you fold it back, and then it has a peg, and you pull the peg, and it, except when I do it, it hits my hand. So I'm not going to do it. Well, no, I mean, I don't want to do it while I'm holding it like this. This was Greek and Roman. The Greeks and Romans used forms of catapults. But in the Middle Ages, because of this idea of castles, because of lots of fortified places, they developed the science to a fine art. And so the trebuchet is based on a counterweight. It basically slings it. This is like a big sling, and I have weight in this box. The amount of weight that you put in the box and the length of the pole and the size of the sling, the size of the string, all of it affects how far the projectile will go. And mathematicians and engineers had it down to a science, how to adjust it to go just the right amount for the right amount of weight. This was the super weapon of the Middle Ages. This was like the height of catapult technology. Yeah, Rhett. Oh no, I never want to do that. So my husband, I was asking my husband because I said, my kids are going to ask, and I'm not some sort of trebuchet expert, although I do play Age of Empires on occasion. And he said, there's all sorts of YouTube videos, which you should always watch with parental permission, but I think most of them are, you know, not objectionable. And he said he saw one that well, first of all, let me preface it by saying, we don't know a lot about the building of trebuchets because we have no written records of how they built them. We only have artistic representations, like woodcuts and stuff like that, and paintings. We don't know. So they have to copy the painting. And for a while, so you see it has wheels on it, and they have wheels on them in the pictures that they find. And oh no, I've lost. Oh, it's right here. Let's see, I've lost my pen. The pen is important. For a long time, scientists were wondering: are the wheels just to roll it up to where you want it to go? And then are you supposed to immobilize the wheels when you shoot it? Because it's like recoil from a rifle. When it moves, the whole trebuchet moves. Now, this one isn't going to move because it's not got the kind of weight. I'm shooting a ping pong ball out of it because I don't want to break anything, you know. But when you're shooting something really big, it would move. And so they did an experiment. They actually built one to the best of their knowledge, and they tried it twice with the same amount of weight. They did once where they immobilized the wheels and they shot it. And then they did once where they let it just stay free and they let it, you know, adjust as it shot. Apparently, as this counterweight swings and it makes it roll, it keeps the center of weight, the center of balance even, and it shoots even farther when you let the wheels go. The wheels were actually part of the technology to shoot it farther. They knew that if you immobilized it, it wouldn't do as well as if you allowed it to have that give when you shot it. It's amazing. So he said on YouTube, he saw them shooting pianos out of one. It's pretty big. I don't know, maybe they were old pianos. I'm hoping they were not brand new pianos. Okay, so Jesse, I'm going to unplug myself and I'm going to go over. Do you think, here's what I want to do. Could you guys move that table over a little bit? I'm going to go over by that trash can. We're going to shoot it towards this wall. We're going to see what happens. Hello.
Sure where this was. Is there a what, come show me. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to do this. What hole? The hole is in here. Yep,
Oh,
right there.
see, Matthias fixed it.
I can't do anything. I'm completely incompetent. I just pretend like I know what I'm doing. Most of the time, I can't find things. I can't make things work. Okay, so, but gunpowder, as you can see, when I can just send, first of all, from a cannon, I think with a lot more force. Trebuchet is great, but with incredible force. Now, if my walls are 10 feet thick or 12 feet thick, one cannon shot is not going to run the wall. It is going to do some damage to my knight in armor. But when you can have explosive devices, and Matthias mentioned undermining too. This was also something they did. You put on the mouth, it's their body. Yes, you can dig under. If I have something explosive here, I'm going to blow that baby right up, and I'm in the town. And so castles no longer do me any good. Suits of armor no longer do me any good. It was. Oh, I think I would write that. It was, I think, if I'm remembering right, it's 1453 is the first use of gunpowder. I really think it's also the Gutenberg printing press. That's totally not right. That machine is called a trebuchet, and it's spelled like this because it's French. Yes, a trebuchet. So look into it, and maybe you want to mention to your family, hey, let's look on YouTube and see what you know the trebuchet. Fun. Oh, I forgot the microphone. Sorry, Jesse. We're back. So next week, I'm going to have you, let me give you your reading questions. I'm going to have you read about knighthood, which also, as I just said, is pretty much doomed when gunpowder comes into play, because suits of armor are not going to protect me anymore. So here are your reading questions for next time. I'll actually dish them out this time. 1, 2, 3. Oh, 4, 5. That's right. I already gave yours right. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, and hopefully there are 3 here. And here, oh, there's 2. Oh, Jesse. Here we go. And so, with our remaining time, I'd really like to talk a little bit about the dragon and the raven. But what? It's their new favorite book. How lovely. I know. Well, you're in Ella's camp with that. She hates it.
I like that.
But before we run out of time and before we start putting things away, I would like to introduce you to your next book, though. Actually, wait a minute. Let me just ask everybody in this room, does everybody here, if I were to email you something, do you have easy access to that?
Yeah.
Is that, does anybody not? Would that be you do not. It would be a hard, okay. So, Matthias, were you here when we were talking about the picture in the book? Do you have your Dorothy Mills book with you? Okay. Yeah, it looks just like this? Okay, then you have it. Because the next writing assignment, I'm going to tell you what you're going to write this week, but the one for next week is going to involve the picture. This picture, it's very famous, called the Accolade. It's a man being knighted. And I want to make sure everybody has a copy of the picture, but it was just way too much toner and it was too expensive to go to the library and print it in color. And I just thought if I could email everyone a copy, but most of you don't need it because you have the picture actually in your book. But some of you may not. I will, you know what, I'm going to attach, when I send out the group, I send an email every week to your parents for what we did, and I'm going to attach it to that email, but Matthias, it shouldn't matter to you because you have it in the book, and I will put that in the email. This should be in chapter 11 in their books, but if it's not, okay, yes, page 183. If it's not, you can do the one on the computer. Okay, Roy. Oh, did I not give you one? I'm sorry. See, people go use the bathroom and I just forget about them. I told you I'm completely incompetent. Like apparently my short-term memory is gone and wow. So the next book, obviously we finished The Dragon and the Raven. We've been reading about these Danes, the Vikings, invading all over the place. And so we're going to read The Children of Odin. It is a collection of Norse mythology. What did the Vikings, the Danes who were invading and fighting King Alfred, what were their gods like? Many of them you know. Odin and Thor and Loki. You're going to meet a lot of familiar names, but they're not going to be quite the Avengers versions of them. Yeah, Maya. Okay, well, that's the next thing I want to say. You might want to write this down. So if your book looks like mine, I'm going to write the assignment down two ways. It's pages 1 through 44. But if your book does not look like mine, in the table of contents, it's divided into a part 1 and a part 2, okay? And unfortunately for us, each of the chapters in those parts doesn't have a chapter number. It only has a title, much like our Arabian Nights, where I had to tell you, read up through Prince Camaralzaman and the Princess Badura or whatever. So what we're going to read is we're going to read all of part 1. And then in part 2, we're going to read 2 stories. We're going to read a story about Mimir's Well. That is not the whole title. It says, Odin goes to Mimir's Well, his sacrifice for wisdom. All right, but I'm just going to write Mimir's Well because I'm lazy and I'm not going to write the whole thing. Yes. And then the second story is called Odin Faces an Evil Man. Now I'm going to get out of the way for you guys. So that's the section, and that's the first 44 pages of the book. This book is it doesn't have pictures in it if your book is like mine, but it's got like a lot of the chapters end and it's got big blank. It's not tons of reading, and probably you're going to find it pretty interesting because most of us know something about these gods now because of the Avenger movies. And we know that Loki's kind of a jerk and a bit of a rotter, which he is. He's the god of mischief, and worse, because he's going to engineer the murder of another god. So he would do that, and he does do it. What? Thor is roughly the same. Yeah, Thor is roughly the same. So, what? I don't know. It's interesting to me to see ways that the originals differ from the popular conception rather than the same. But anyway, I'm curious what you're going to think. Any of you who are familiar with the Avenger movies. But keep in mind why we're reading this too. This is the pagan world into which Christianity spread. All right, so two pagan worlds. In the book of Acts and the very early church, we see it spreading into Greek and Roman world, right? And we've got Zeus and Hera, or Jupiter and Juno, depending on if you're Greek or Roman, all those guys.
I read Acts chapter 14 today, and it was saying how Paul and Barnabas were preaching, and they thought they were Zeus
And Hermes, Paul was Hermes because he did the speaking, right? And Hermes brings messages. Yes. And they're like, no way, don't do that, don't worship us. So, but the second level of the spread of the church was into this pagan world as they started branching out, these Germanic tribes that came in when the Roman Empire fell. The Franks and the Goths and the Vandals and all these guys, they worshiped these gods. And so the Christians had to learn how to evangelize people who were living under this system. And it's kind of a depressing system. Yeah, Rhett. No, they didn't have a Bible. What they did, and this is, I'll write this up if you're interested. Some people are interested, and if you're not, ignore it. the place we know this from are from two books. One is called the Prose Edda, and the other is called the Poetic Edda. And they're not like, you don't want to sit and read large portions of this at one time, because it's a little archaic sounding and tiresome. But all these stories come from these documents, which were basically like written down somewhere maybe the year 1000 in Scandinavia. And so that's how we know all these stories. We actually have a source for them. But I don't think they had a Bible, like a holy document, like the Bible or the Quran or something. They did not. Okay, so everybody got that? So you're gonna read chapter 11, and you're gonna start the Children of Odin. And let me give you your writing assignment, and then we'll just spend the rest of our time talking about a few things, which is not very much time now. It's because I shot you guys so many times. It's okay. It's all right. It makes me awesome. Can I just have you record you with that statement? You like getting shot? Well, you know what? I was just telling Isabella, she came in early. I've been packing up my son's room because he left, to move away because he's in the military now. And I'm turning his room into a guest room. I'm not even letting anything get cold in there. They're ripping it out. Anyway, they have a lot of weapons, but I wouldn't shoot because they're airsoft guns. I witnessed someone being executed for breaking the rules in the backyard with an airsoft gun to the back, but I will not do that. I have the power to shoot at you with a lot of things, though, but I won't do it. Okay, I want to mention, and this is your writing assignment. In chapter 16, Swin has kidnapped Frida, right? And because he's impulsive and he's annoying and he's a little bit of a jerk, And Edmund is hot on their trail. He does not know where they have gone, right? Do you remember this part? And let me read a couple of excerpts from this to you. They went into the forest. So there's a bunch of streams. So he's in, what today would be, I don't know, like Belgium and northern Germany and maybe part of Poland, maybe not that far east. Edmund knew nothing of these streams, but the Danes with him said there were several rivers so situated, for they had sailed up them. Then that is the way we will search, Edmund said. If they come to a river, they will doubtless set to work to build galleys, which somebody asked me yesterday, what is that, ships, to carry them to the sea. For with only 300 men, Swin will not venture to march by land through a country which was but lately suffered heavily at the hands of the Danes. Okay, so it says then, before entering the forest, they obtained a considerable store of provisions, for they had no idea of its extent, and they had no time to spend in hunting game. Then they go on the way. It says the greatest caution was observed. Every sound was marked, and at the call of a human voice, the low of cattle, or the bleating of sheep, they turned their course so as to avoid encounter with the inhabitants of the forest. They lit no fires at night, and scarce a word was spoken on the march. Several times they had to take refuge in thickets when they heard the sound of approaching voices, and it needed all their knowledge of woodcraft to maintain their direction steadily towards the north. At last, after 6 days' journey, they issued out into the open country beyond the forest and soon arrived at a cottage. Okay? Then you remember, they asked the man at the cottage, they convinced him they were friendly, and they said, would you go get us clothes that the people who live here wear so we blend in? And then they headed out, and they finally found the camp of Swin. And so what I'd like you to do, I would like you to write a diary. Some of you did this last year. And some of you are like, oh no, it's the diary thing again. And some are like, yay, it's the diary thing again. All right, you're going to write a diary. Your diary is going to have 4 entries. Do you all know what I mean? We write a diary, you put the date at the top, although you do not have to put a date at the top of this. And then you put what happened that day, right? Everybody got, you know the concept? Is everybody, Roy's not? So sometimes Roy like to keep a journal, people like to keep a journal or a diary. And so they just write down what happened that day. They write down like they sit down at night before they go to bed, and like, today, depending on what's of interest to you, I ate a huge meal at Taco John's, and then, you know, and then I went to Whitey's after because I'm a total glutton. And then, you know, I watched a movie, and then my best friend called, and I hadn't talked to him for a long time. And then you might write what your friend talked about. Just what happened that day. Does that make sense, Roy? Yeah, what's your question? Well, that's a really good question. I feel like, you know what, Roy? Some of the greatest historical documents we have are journals left by men, like Davy Crockett, like the founding fathers, left behind accounts. The only reason we know what happened at the Constitutional Convention where they were writing the Constitution is because somebody died. So it might seem a little girly today. I will. Journal, okay. No, I'm going to tell you. No, I'm going to tell you what it is. I would like each entry to be at least 4 or 5 sentences long. Don't just write one sentence. That's lame. You can do better than that. Okay, I know you can do better than that. And here's what you're going to do. You're going to be a character in the book. You get a choice, though. Okay, one choice is you can be Edmund. One choice, you can be Frida. One choice, you can be one of Edmund's companions on the journey. Can I just write comp? Or you can be one of Swin's companions. Well, Swin's just the villain. We're not going to honor him with a journal, I decided. Okay, choose. Everybody look at this. Choose one. I don't want you, so everybody look at me. I don't mean write one entry as Edmund, one entry as Frida. I don't mean that. You choose one of these people and you are that person. You are that person. And I want you to tell me what was happening during that 6 days in the woods. All right? Because Mr. Hinty doesn't tell us anything, does he? No. Okay, this is a good question, though, and I was asking yesterday, not specifically or something. No. Anachronism. That's a lovely word. Anachronism. Chronos means time, and or ana means not. It means not in the right time. Yes, it is. And Chronos means time. Yes, Roy. What, cars? No, they cannot jump in a car and chase Swin. So to the best of your ability, I realize you're not experts in the early Middle Ages. It's fine, you know, but no airplanes, no helicopters, no AK-47, none of that. Yes. I know it would make it cool, but we're not going to do it. I know. Okay, everybody. Ella has a question. Yes, Ella.
What chapter is this covering?
This is chapter 16. That excerpt I read to you is from chapter 16. Now, unfortunately, we are out of time, but I'm going to go ahead and give you this anyway, because I wanted to talk about some of the things, I'll just keep you a few minutes, all right, that we learned. Stories are cool just because they're cool. Like, this was a fun story, and it's exciting, and maybe you knew he was going to find her, but yeah, it's adventure and there's revenge and justice is served out, and we love that. But sometimes stories can teach us things. And I don't mean that that they write the story to teach us something. But I mentioned something in this book. Edmund is self-controlled. Like at one point it says he got to the camp and he really wanted to sneak into the camp because he wanted to see how Frida was. But he knew it was smarter to send one of the Danes in because he could speak the language. So I have, and I would hang on to this. You could use it as a bookmark, or you could use it, just stick it in your folder. And I want to revisit this. This is themes to look for in great books. Like what is the book about? Well, the book is about the plot, but sometimes it teaches us something else. Like I was thinking about The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It's a great story. But it also, and I was thinking specifically, do you remember, hopefully if you remember at the end, you know, as far as he knows, Aslan is dead and Peter has to go to battle. Do you remember this? Peter has to go and he's a boy and he's scared, but he does it anyway because it's his task that he's been given. And so this is fortitude, right? It's bravery. So this is just things to look for in books, and I wanted to talk about this more, but we ran out of time, so there you go. But we'll use this for future reference, but while I have it, I'm going to give it to you guys. And then you can pack up and go. And are there any questions? Yes. Chapter 16. I think I've given you 5 of these, but I don't know. We were going to talk about conflict and theme and plot and everything. Would you like one? I think I got extra. Here, just. Yes.
It'd be awesome if we could just like do stuff that weren't there, because then Edmund could just take a chase.
I know it would be.
Swin flies away in the airplane. Edmund chases him in a jeep.
Maybe someday I'll have to give an assignment where we can do anachronisms and we can turn it into, but not this time. I understand your point, though. I'm sorry. I'm trapping you. Oh, whoa, you still haven't got it. Okay. We're good. Yes, court alert.